And this is why, centuries later, Hussein still speaks, not through speeches but through conscience, not through armies but through tears. He does not ask you what religion you belong to. He asks you one question only: when truth stands alone, where will you stand? After leaving Medina, after the quiet departure from Makkah, the journey to Kufa was not marked by armies or banners. It began with letters written with hope and desperation, sealed with faith and longing, sent by hearts craving justice. Kufa called him. The people swore loyalty, and they promised support. They wrote, "Come to us, O son of Fatima. We have no imam but you. Our hearts are with you. Our swords are ready. Our homes are open. Our prayers are yours." Hussein listened. He knew that the road ahead was fraught with danger, that promises in ink often melt before the heat of reality. Yet he understood that silence in the face of oppression is itself a choice, and every choice carries a consequence. He could not ignore the cries of those who had lost their voice, the pleas of those whose conscience had been silenced by fear. Muslim ibn Aqil, his trusted envoy, entered Kufa quietly. He came not as a warrior, but as a witness. He did not raise banners, he did not shout slogans. He walked the streets, spoke in whispers, met the people where they lived, and sought their hearts. At first the city responded. Thousands pledged their allegiance. Hands rose, voices joined in vows, and hearts were set aflame with hope. But in the shadows a darker force observed. Fear had already planted seeds in the hearts of men. Ubaydullah bin Ziyad, the governor appointed by Yazid, was ruthless. He did not rely on argument, he did not seek justice. He relied on terror, on intimidation, on the corruption of loyalty through gold and threats. Slowly, the crowds began to vanish. Each home that once promised support closed its doors. Each hand that once pledged allegiance withdrew, and Muslim ibn Aqil stood alone. Alone in a city of thousands. Alone in the face of betrayal, humiliation, and death. He was captured, tortured, and martyred, sending his final message to Hussein: "Do not come. The people cannot be trusted." But the message arrived too late. Hussein had already set out on the path to Kufa. His family walked with him, men, women, children, those who had trusted in justice and those who simply believed in truth. This was not a march of armies, but a journey of witness. Along the way, people warned him, "O Hussein, the hearts of Kufa may call to you, but their swords follow Yazid." Hussein replied calmly, "The will of Allah shall prevail. I do not move for power nor for revenge. I move because truth must be witnessed, because injustice must be confronted, because conscience cannot remain silent." The desert stretched endlessly before him, the heat oppressive, the sand burning beneath the feet of those who followed him. Each step was a reminder of the path of righteousness, each mile a test of faith. Water became scarce, the sun scorched their backs, the nights brought cold and despair. And yet, Hussein's resolve did not waver. He was not driven by personal glory, nor by desire for worldly power. He was driven by the principle that no tyranny can endure when faced by those willing to sacrifice everything for truth. As they neared Karbala, the army of Yazid's forces awaited them. The numbers were staggering. Hussein's followers were few, 72, including his closest companions, men who understood that they were marching not for themselves, but for justice, for the truth, for the sake of humanity. Hussein's family were with him, children whose innocence bore witness to the cruelty of the world. Women whose faith strengthened those around them. And yet, even in this small group, fear was not absent. The weight of the impossible task lay heavy on every heart. On the night before Ashura, Hussein gathered his companions. He did not command them with fear, nor did he demand their loyalty. He gave them freedom. "Leave in the darkness if you must. My life is all they seek, none left. Because when truth stands alone, no fear can outweigh the necessity of standing." The dawn of Ashura arrived with the scorching sun, the dry winds of the desert, and the cries of those who knew they were witnessing history. Hussein and his companions faced an enemy whose numbers and resources dwarfed their own. The river Euphrates was blocked, water was denied. Hunger gnawed at the stomachs of the young and old alike. Yet Hussein's heart remained steadfast, his eyes fixed on the purpose that had guided him from Makkah. One by one the companions fell. Each martyr confronted death with courage, tearing the mask from falsehood. The cries of the children echoed across the plains, yet each sound was met with the calm presence of Hussein, who reminded them that truth was more powerful than tyranny. Finally, Hussein himself faced the enemy alone. He stood, not as a man seeking vengeance, but as a man whose conscience refused compromise. His sacrifice was not for himself, nor for glory, nor for recognition. It was to illuminate the darkness of oppression, to remind the world that conscience cannot be silenced, that truth must always be witnessed, that justice, even in its final moments, must be held sacred. When Hussein fell, it was not merely the fall of a man, it was a declaration to the world that no army, no tyrant, no decree, no threat could erase the light of truth. Karbala was not the death of Hussein. Karbala was the death of excuses, the shattering of cowardice, the illumination of the principles that bind humanity to conscience. Karbala teaches us that letters can promise support and yet betray, that prayers can be spoken while injustice is done, that crowds can cheer and yet leave the righteous alone, that silence in the face of falsehood is participation. Hussein did not die to be mourned. He died to be understood, to be remembered, to guide generations toward justice, toward courage, toward conscience. And centuries later, his echo still asks, when injustice rises, will you stand? When truth stands alone, will you remain or will you fade away? This story is not just history, it is a mirror. It asks each listener, each observer, each human being, will you choose comfort over principle, safety over justice, silence over truth? Will you be among those who simply witness or among those who stand? Because Karbala is not merely a place, it is a choice. It is the standard of conscience. It is the heartbeat of humanity. And the legacy of Hussein lives, not in the swords he never drew, not in armies he never commanded, not in crowns or thrones, but in the silent power of standing alone, standing righteous, standing unwavering. Centuries later, when injustice rises, when the powerful oppress the weak, when promises fail and letters lie, the story of Karbala rises from the desert once again, reminding every human being that conscience, courage, and sacrifice are the only shields that endure. And every time someone chooses to stand for truth, to refuse compromise, to honor justice over fear, the echo of Hussein whispers, "You are not alone. The lesson is alive. The sacrifice is alive. The spirit is alive. And it is enough."